Alright, so, new channel. This is gonna be my first long video. Hope you guys like it. If you don't, tell me why. I would love your feedback. But anyway, let's just get into it. So, today's video is gonna be about something that I really care about, and that's movement optimism. I, in the past, have been what you could call a reductionist. I have injured myself and I have tried to not do movements that I believed were dangerous in some kind of way, either because I'd injured myself previously doing them and just stopped, or because I, for some reason, believed that they were dangerous. This is bogus, and I've learned that since then. I have learned to be as optimistic as possible, especially because I have hypermobility, and that makes me injury prone. I have had issues in every single joint that you can imagine, and I have had to find ways to get around that. And that's the one thing that I believe wholeheartedly about training, is that you need to be optimistic about movements, and you cannot be afraid of moving your body in the ways that it can naturally move. So in this video, first I'm just going to talk about what movement optimism is. I'm going to give some personal examples, and now we're just going to conclude. So yeah. So what is movement optimism? Movement optimism is essentially just the opposite of reductionism. You're trying to be as optimistic as you possibly can about movements, and always seeing if there's other new ways to do things that are against the status quo, or updated about and that. What is movement optimism? So movement optimism, essentially, it's just being optimistic about every way that you can move your human body, and in training and doing exercises that maybe aren't what the normal things that everyone else is doing, but that can benefit you in very strange and particular ways. Maybe it's because it's actually just better for hypertrophy, for growing muscles. Maybe it's even a better variation for you specifically to get stronger. Or maybe it's a very particular exercise that doesn't annoy your joints if you've been injured before. So compared to reductionism, it's essentially just not believing that movement is dangerous. Any movement that your body can do, you can load that movement if you do it safely enough, and load slowly. And you should explore as many different ways of moving as possible. So here's just a few examples in my own training over the last year or so. Exercises that I've implemented into my program. First one are just Zercher lifts. So Zercher stiff leg deadlifts, Zercher deadlifts, and Zercher squats. Zerchers are very unique in how you hold them, because you're holding them in between the creases of your elbow, and they encourage you to round your spine whenever you're lifting. So, for example, what I started out with was just Zercher deadlifts, picking up from the ground here and just doing a normal deadlift. But what it does is your spine has to round much more to get the weight up. And I have injured my back before. I injured my back in late 2023. And since starting doing Zerchers and other back movements that I allow my back to round in, I have never had any problems with my erectors. They've never been a problem. My spine has not been a problem since then. And I feel so much stronger and so much better. So, of course, I had to build up to these. I started with some light Jefferson curls, just trying to start with the movement, and then it worked up to some pretty okay weights. Not the most, not the best, but pretty okay weights. And plus, I got a lot of hamstring mobility from it. I very recently implemented Zercher squats into my program, and I am liking them so far. And it's a different type of movement, and I really like it. Yeah. So, just to clarify, rounding your spine is not dangerous in any way. We used to believe this. That was bogus. It was from some dead pig carcasses that we put into one specific grounded position for way too long, and then concluded that it was dangerous for humans, which is ridiculous. But we have done now studies and shown that even people that believe they have a neutral spine when they're deadlifting don't actually have a neutral spine, and it's just not a dangerous position to be in. And your spine is a segment of joints. Your erectors are what move it. What other muscle do you treat differently? It's just a muscle moving a joint, and that's it. Would you think it's dangerous to bend your elbow? No. So why do you think it's dangerous to bend your spine? Alright, next one. Knees over toes, movements like that. So first example are gonna be sissy squats. I injured my knee back before nationals this last year, and it completely ruined my prep for squat, especially for squats and even for deadlifts, because my knees could not handle it. I had to go down to the bar and then to 40 kilos and do like 40-50 reps with 40 kilos just to get stimulus for my quads. That shit was not fun. But what I did was I worked up slowly, and with more and more knee bend with different exercises, primarily squats. But then eventually, as they got stronger and I built up, I started doing sissy squats, and then I started doing reverse Nordic curls. And holy shit, my knees are so strong now. They don't hurt ever, at all. Like, they feel amazing. And I've worked up some pretty heavy weights on sissy squats. I'm come to the point where I can't really load it anymore. I'm holding a plate and more in my hands, going down for like sets of at least 5 reps. And I've kind of just moved on to reverse Nordic curls, where you can have a barbell and hold it in your hand and load as much weight as you can. Right now I'm around 50 kilos for a couple reps, and that's amazing. And it's also theoretically more optimal for hypertrophy, as we've found out from the lengthened partial studies. More to come with that later in my channel, actually. But yeah, anyway, previously we believed that this was dangerous, that it was too much stress on your knee joint to go knees over toes by any degree. That's why you see a lot of old powerlifters have completely vertical shins, because they believe either it was dangerous or that they absolutely could lift most weight if they kept them vertical, which isn't true necessarily, and it's not dangerous. One thing is that you need to start light and you need to work up. Even if you're not injured, they do stress your knee, but your knee can work up to the weights and become much more strong and healthy. So just make sure that you start light and do what's comfortable. Don't do it if it's too painful. Too painful. It should be a little bit painful, like 2 out of 10 on the pain scale. We know that that is good for you to be in a little bit of pain, because that actually helps in the healing process. Alright, so next one, we have behind the neck pushes, pulls, and then upright rows. I'm putting these together because this being scared of it kind of came from the same guy, Athlete X. And those were done, the studies came from theoretical research about you putting this. It was a disadvantageous position for your shoulder to be in, where it was compromised. Bullshit. We know that that's not true anymore, and because we've actually done real studies on it, and it's just not dangerous for you. And we knew this from the golden era guys. You can see Arnold doing behind the neck presses, and you can see other golden era bodybuilders who behind the neck pulls and upright rows, and they all had great shoulders, no issues with their shoulders whatsoever, and they were very, very conscious of them. You can see that whenever they talk about bench presses, how they did their bench presses to keep their shoulders healthy. That's besides the point. Behind the neck presses, behind the neck pull-ups, and upright rows I have implemented them into my program several times over my lifting career, and they have all serviced me well. I love them. The behind the neck press, I haven't really done that much in the last bit because it just hasn't been necessary, but behind the neck pull-ups, they're great. Same with upright rows. I have done them, same with as a variation of face pulls. Of course, I go a little bit heavy on it, and they're great. They're great for the upper back, and they're great for your shoulders. So is the behind the neck press, and behind the neck pull-ups are great for your lats. Yep, and then fourth one, this is a kind of more general thing. Whenever you're doing movements, any movement, experiment. Whenever I do flies, I go extremely deep, because I find it more comfortable, and I find it gives me a better stretch on the chest, and I like it a lot. Say, like, dumbbell presses, you can, I do them in a very particular manner because I think it isolates my front delt more. I have done a lot of like weighted stretches because I notice that they help my shoulders whenever they feel bad. Forearms. I have had lots of wrist pain throughout my benching career. A lot of it, and especially from French low bar and from benching with a. Before I learned how to do a bulleye grip, the weight would be here, and that stressed my wrist to the maximum. So I've done so many different forearm exercises, and you just have to try to find what works well. And I've done a lot of exercises. A lot of them. But yeah, in general, just whenever you're doing whatever movements you're doing, try to either find variations and test them out, see if you like them, and whatever you're doing, tweak it a little bit every once in a while. See if I go a little deeper here, if I fly my elbows out here, whatever. If that feels better for you, continue. And just continue experimenting. Be optimistic about it. Alright? And yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Thank you for watching. I hope that you appreciate it, and like, subscribe, the basic things. And thank you. And I'll see you later.